Hello. In this video, we're going to look at the attendance scorecard. And I think it's important for schools to look at attendance and look at the trends over time and some of that comparative data. But attendance is always a little bit tricky. And the reason is it's difficult to compare one month to another since there are a different number of school days in different months. Some months have more school days than others. So it's difficult to just compare a raw number of absences from one month to the next. And another thing that's difficult is to look at comparative data because schools have obviously different number of students. Some schools are much bigger than other schools, and so you can't compare just that number of absences from one school to another. And so to overcome that, we created this scorecard to look at opportunities. And I'm going to switch over here real quick. An opportunity on this scorecard is looking at how many opportunities there are for students to be absent. So in this completely made up school here, we're going to pretend that there's a school with just one student. And if there's one student and there are 20 days, school days in that month, that means that there are 20 opportunities for that student to be absent. If we look at a different school and a different month, let's say this school has 100 students, and in this month there are only 15 school days. And so this school for this month will have 1,500 opportunities for students to be absent. And so that's what opportunities are. And when you combine that with the data for the number of absences, you're able to compare schools that are different sizes and months that have different days in them. So for example, in these made up schools here, there's a school with 25 students and 20 days in a month, which means that there are 500 opportunities for students to be absent. And that's just simply 25 students times 20 school days. And if this school had 65 absences, then that would come to 130 absences per 1,000 opportunities. And you can kind of do the math in your head here. So there were 500 opportunities and 65 absences. And so if we normalized that to 1,000 absences, we would have to double the number of opportunities to get to 1,000. So we double the number of absences, and then we get to 130 absences per 1,000 opportunities. You look at a different school that has 125 students, a much bigger school, in a month that had 16 days, there are 2,000 opportunities to be absent. And again, that's just the 125 times the 16. So there are 2,000 opportunities to be absent. If there were 250 absences in that month, then that comes to 125 absences per 1,000 opportunities. And again, you can kind of do the math in your head that there were 2,000 opportunities, 250 absences. So to normalize that to 1,000, we can just divide that by 2. And then you divide the absences by 2, and you get 125 absences per 1,000 opportunities. And so we can compare, again, schools that are vastly different sizes with different number of days in the month to see this. And so even though this school had obviously a larger number of raw absences, when you normalize that across 1,000 opportunities, they had fewer absences per 1,000 opportunities than the other school. So I'm going to flip back to the scorecard real quick. Zoom in a little bit here. And what this scorecard does is this is a scorecard with some real data. And so it just does exactly what we just did over on the Excel spreadsheet over there. So for example, in September of 2022, there are 20 instructional days in that month, 37 students, and 45 absences. And that comes to 60.81 absences per 1,000 opportunities. And this scorecard looks at both student absences as well as teacher absences. So for that same month, there were 20 instructional days, there are 11 teachers, and so we use that same methodology. 8 absences is going to be 36.36 teacher absences per 1,000 opportunities. And so that's your raw data there. And then I'm also going to look at the graphs down below. These graphs allow you to look at a few things. The first is really just the trend over time. And so this blue line here represents the current year's absences per 1,000 opportunities for each month. So you can see this dot right here, this September of 2022. In the teacher absences, that represents this 36.36. This really low one here, that's the 15.15. And so this blue line is just your current year. And as you add data to this throughout the year, this line will extend throughout the year. What the scorecard also allows you to do is look at your school's historical trend. So this dotted red line is going to be 5 years of historical data for just your school. And you'll be able to see what your school trends for attendance throughout the year. And then you can see that any of these points are higher or lower than your school would normally be across that 5 years. We also have this comparison line here. And what this line does is it looks at all of the schools that we have as customers and gets a rate for all of those schools. So what you're able to do is see if your school is typically higher or lower than the rest of the schools in the database. And so for this particular graph right here, you can see that the dotted red line is consistently below the gray line. And so this school has consistently fewer teacher absences than the rest of the schools in the database. And so that's what this graph is able to show you, a couple of different things there. We can go down and see the student absences per 1,000 opportunities is the same methodology and the same 3 lines there. So your blue line is the current year, your red line is your school's historical trend, and the gray line is all schools in the database historical trend as well. So you can see in this graph that there was a single point, and that looks like it was 148 absences per 1,000 opportunities for December, which was much higher than December typically is in this school, and much higher than most schools are for December. So that is what the attendance scorecard shows you. If you have any questions about that, you are free to contact me directly at milliganschooldata@gmail.com. Thank you very much.